Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to begin on our next module, which is going to be properties of the real numbers. So let's go ahead and talk about the what's called the commutative property. And I think most people will find this pretty intuitive. And that says that it does not matter which order you add. So let's do a few examples. Again, I think most people will find this intuitive. 1 plus 2 is the same thing as 2 plus 1, right? Because on the left side we have 3, on the right side we have 3. So kind of extracting from that, x plus 9 is the same thing as 9 plus x. And then if we have, let's say x plus 1 plus negative x, we can rewrite this as x plus, because of the commutative property, we can rewrite this as negative x plus 1. And then we can group this together and say x plus negative x, well that's just 0, so we're left with 1. So that's the commutative property. It just says it doesn't matter what order you add. Now I do want to mention that you should be careful because this is not the case with subtraction. So let's do, for example, 1 minus 3. That is negative 2. And 3 minus 1 is positive 2. And these two things are not equal. So be careful with that. The commutative property also applies to multiplication. So let's go to a new page. If we have 5 times 10, that's the same thing as 10 times 5. If we have 3/5 times x, that's the same thing as x times 3/5. All right, doesn't matter what order you multiply. Again, this is really helpful if you have something like, let's say, 7/2 times x times 2/7. Well, because of the commutative property, we can switch the order here. Do 7/2 times 2/7 times x. And then we can group these together and note that it's something multiplied by its reciprocal, meaning that it gives us 1. Right, because we have 2 on top, 2 on bottom, those cancel, 7 on top, 7 on bottom, those cancel, times x, which is just x. And then another warning here, just like subtraction wasn't commutative, division is not either. So if we did 5 divided by 1, we know that's going to be 5 over 1, which is just 5. Whereas 1 divided by 5 is going to be 1 over 5, and those are not equal. So be careful with that. The next property is called the, if I can spell, associative property. And we've actually already used it, and that says it doesn't matter how you group. So for addition, if we do a plus b first and then add c, that's the same thing as taking a and adding it to the sum b plus c. So basically it doesn't matter what order we put the parentheses. So let's look at a few examples. If we did 1 plus 2 plus 3, it doesn't matter if we do 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is going to be 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 is 6, or if we do 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is going to be 1 plus 5, which is 6. They're equal. Likewise, it doesn't matter if we do, let's say we have x plus 1 plus negative x. Then we can regroup things, because addition is associative, into x plus 1 plus negative x. We could use the commutative property to switch these two, x plus negative x plus 1. And then we can use the associative property, because addition is associative, to group. Instead of doing the right two first, we can do the left two first. X plus negative x is going to give us 0, plus 1 is 1. So that's the associative property. Be careful, because the associative property also does not work with subtraction. Let me show you that. Let's say 5 minus 2 minus 1. That's going to be 3 minus 1, which is 2. And then let's do 5 minus 2 minus 1. That's going to be 5 minus 1, which is 4. Those two are not equal. And just as you would expect from working with real numbers in the past, we have the kind of same thing for multiplication. So a times b all times c is the same thing as a times b times c. By the way, the associative property is the reason we don't have to use parentheses for addition and multiplication whenever it's just addition and multiplication. That's why we can write things like a times b times c without the, and I can put the dots in there if we need to, without the need for parentheses anywhere, is because it doesn't matter which side I start with. So let's look at some examples. 5 times 3 times 2. If we do the first two first, 5 times 3 is 15, times 2 is 30. Then 5 times 3 times 2 is going to be 5 times 6, which again is 30. Those two are equal. And then let's look at the case for division. It doesn't work for division. Let me show you why. Let's say 5 divided by 1 divided by 2. If we do this side first, 5 divided by 1 is 5. Divided by 2 is going to be 5 halves. Whereas if we did this side first, we have 5 divided by 1 half, and that is 10. And those two are not equal. So that's the commutative property and the associative property, two very important properties of real numbers that we use all the time without even necessarily thinking about it. Make sure you remember that these two properties do not apply to subtraction, and they do not apply to division. They're just multiplication and addition.